lot of people now, instead of having an attorney draft or review a contract for them, they'll just go pull something off the computer and there you go. No, yeah, this looks good to me. I think it's everything.
On today's episode of Rise, Grind, Repeat, we talk to Marc from Paquette Law. We discuss how he opened up his own law firm in a brand new state all by himself. Let's dive right in. Marc, thank you so much for joining on another episode of Rise, Grind, Repeat. Always excited to have some law advice come in here. And so before we really get into nitty gritty of kind of what you do in your day to day, I would love to kind of just learn more about your background. How did you get into law? What is your kind of entrepreneurial background?
Well, actually, I never really was going to be a lawyer. When I first got out of high school, I decided to go into the Navy. I served 8 years in the Navy, Great Lakes, Orlando, and then San Diego. I was stationed on a ship in San Diego, and several of us wanted to start a scuba diving club. Well, if you're in the government, you can't just say, okay, we're a club. So we had to go look up how to do it, and they asked me to do it, the 13 of us that wanted to do it. So I went and looked it up, figured out all the things, drafted up all the documents, and we had a meeting because we then have to present it to the captain of the ship to approve it because we're going to put the ship's name on it. It was going to be Downs Divers Club. The ship was USS Downs. And I presented it to the captain, and by rule, they have a senior chief who argues against it. I will freely admit that he didn't argue very hard because he wanted to be in the club. So he and I got together and we discussed it, and I told him what I was going to be saying. He told me the objections he's going to have and gave me a chance to figure out if I can counter his objections, which I did. After that, we went to the captain's mast to present it. And when it was all said and done, the captain approved it, and he pulled me aside. He says, I'm 19 at the time. He says, you're a pretty bright kid. You should consider getting out and going to law school because you did everything a lawyer did, and you did it very well. So that little seed was planted, and when my 4 years of active service was up, instead of renewing and staying for the 20 I'd originally planned on, I wanted to give that idea a thought. So I went to reserve status, went back to Providence, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts, and I started going to school nights from 1991 to 2001, and I went to school 10 years nights, and I got my undergrad degree, then my law degree. And now 20 years later, here I am. I'm a lawyer.
Love it. Was there any particular part of law that you wanted to practice? I know there's so many different facets of law.
It's funny you asked that. Someone asked me that question about 2-3 years ago. And when I first started, I actually wanted to do environmental law. There was a class offered by Pace University that said, get a leg up on law school. Your first year can make or break you. And they offered a 3-day class to help train you to become a lawyer, to help train you to get through law school and understand why lawyers do what they do. So I went to this course in New York, and I stayed there for the 3 days. And one of the speakers was an environmental attorney for the Budweiser Corporation. And he had indicated that he loved his job. He was paid high six figures. He traveled all around the world and made sure their plants, wherever they were staying compliant. And if they weren't compliant with the local environmental laws and everything else, he would work with local counsel to handle any litigation, or he would be there to advise them before anything does happen. You guys need to make these changes so you don't stay in trouble. And in listening to him and talking about it, I thought, well, I spent 4 years in the active service, and I've traveled around the world, which was phenomenal. I've been to like India, Australia, and everything else. I thought this would be the ideal job. So that's what I wanted to do. But then, you finally get through law school, and it's like, I just need to get a job. So I started off with a personal injury law firm and did not enjoy that at all. Also, that year was 2002, 2003 winter back in Massachusetts. We hit 180 inches of snow.
Holy
and I says,
cow.
I'm done.
Holy cow.
So I came out here July 11th of 2003, studied for the Arizona bar exam, took that July 29th and 30th, and just waited for the results. And I found out I passed, so I never went back.
Nice. So is that whenever you kind of started your own practice, or?
No, actually, it's funny. I would say about 80% of all laws go across states. They're similar, but every state, and it may even be higher, maybe even as high as 90%, but every state has its own uniqueness.
Mm-hmm.
So they have ways of handling things differently. And even in some general areas of law, they have some unique ways of handling things. For example, Arizona is a community property state. I'm from Massachusetts. They don't recognize community property, but they have common law. We don't have common law here in Arizona. So depending upon what area of law, there are some unique differences to each state. I started off with a firm in Scottsdale doing primarily commercial litigation, HOA disputes, construction disputes, business disputes. Started doing some estate planning for clients, helping set up businesses, contract reviews, and stuff like that. But I would say at that time, primarily, I'd say about 75, 80% of my caseload was all litigation.
Okay.
So I did that for a year and a half. And I went in and asked for a raise because I realized I had billed out over $460,000 for this firm. And he fired me on the spot when he said, actually what happened was he said, I'm not giving you a raise just because you've been here for a year and a half. I said, well, what about the fact that I billed out $465,000? Yeah. He says, well, I do it on a different merit base. I says, well, then I think I'm going to start looking elsewhere. He says, then you're fired. So he fired me there on the spot. I said, all right, no worries. I interviewed with 2 other firms. They wanted to start me back over as a junior associate and everything. I says, you know what? Sat down with my wife. I said, let's give it a shot, me 1 year. If I can make as much money as they're offering in 1 year, then we'll keep a go at it. If I can't make that much money, then I'll start looking again. And my first year, I made about 10 grand more than what they were offering me. And my second year, I've been doing probably about twice that amount, what I was being offered.
That's amazing.
So it was nice.
Yeah.
And, my wife was happy with it and everything else. We still weren't sure we wanted to stay in Arizona. I still maintain licenses here and in Massachusetts. My wife's family and my family, a lot of my family is from Massachusetts as well. But my immediate family had moved out this way. My older brother, my younger sister. I have another brother who lives in California, and then I got stepbrothers and half-brothers back in Florida, Connecticut, and Massachusetts. So as a result, we finally decided 4 years ago to buy a house here, and we know we're staying here for good. But I've been on my own here in Arizona since 2006.
Wow, congrats.
So, it's been going well.
That's amazing. So, I mean, within 1 year, you were able to, blow that benchmark out of the water, which is awesome. Yeah. My question is, it's tough to make that transition going from, you're an employee to I'm going to do this myself. A lot of stress, a lot of liability that comes in, but really, how am I going to actually drum up business? So how were you able to go out and within 1 year, find the right people, pitch them your services, find the people that are willing to pay and all that, and really get things up and going? How were you able to get what you brought them?
To preface just before that, I actually changed my business from mostly litigation to mostly transactional. I was out one day driving with my wife. We're both new to the area. We're looking around. I had just finished up one trial, and I was going to start another trial the following Tuesday. And we're driving up the Bush Highway going up towards Payson, and my wife says, wow, what a beautiful day, not a cloud in the sky. But me being in that litigation mode, I says, well, there are 3 clouds. There's 2 over there. There's 1 over there. And the car got deathly quiet. You knew there was that feeling in the car. So I slowly turned to look at my wife, and she just quietly said, you're an asshole when you litigate. So when I went on my own, I decided to do mostly transactional. I still take 1 or 2 cases a year.
Yeah.
But in looking to decide I tried to figure out who my power partners would be. Because I do estate planning, financial planners are a natural selection. Because I do business law, business accountants are natural. And then the businesses themselves. So what I did was I became a serial networker. In 2006, I got to the point where I was probably going to maybe 6-7 events a week.
Oh, wow.
And just getting out there, getting known. Did that, probably picked up my first client in the first week of doing that. Not a major thing, but it was just enough to say, okay, it was a win. It was like, I know I could do it now. And I just continued that. And like for the first year, I literally was going to probably 30 events a month.
Wow.
It got to the point where I was so busy networking that I was staying up until 1-2 o'clock in the morning to get the work done.
Yeah.
So then I finally said, okay, let's try to, ratchet back some of this. Which ones are working, which ones aren't. And that's what I do to today. Like I'll check out different networking groups and I give them 6 months. If I can start pulling money in, it gives them time to get to know me, me time to get to know them, help them out, they can help me out by hiring me for my services. And if it's worthwhile, I stay. If it turns out to be, no, this isn't a worthwhile group, I move on to the next one.
Yep.
So I usually try to run maybe 4 different groups at a time. And then that right there can keep me into maybe 3 to 7 networking events every 2 weeks is now what I got it down to. Yeah. And I try now to do a lot of it for after hours, like where we met. I prefer the, right after work, Monday through Thursday, Monday through Friday thing, if need be. I still try to get there. Like a lot of people always argue that work-life balance. So I promised my wife that you get me from Friday at 6 p.m. to Monday at 6 a.m. And I've been pretty good about that. I mean, I think I've only violated that rule once or twice in the last, 10 years. But, by doing all the networking and everything else, and because I've been doing it so long now, a lot of my clients are referring clients to me. So, like you're fairly young. If I sat down with you and your wife and put you together in an estate plan and you were happy with everything, you in turn would say, as you talk to your parents or your brothers and sisters, do you guys have a will or a trust? I met this great guy. He did, this is what he did for us. He even made house calls. He came to us. He's made it real easy. And now we're sure of, if anything happens, what will take place. And as a result of things like that, I have a lot of clients. I would say the majority of my clients are within 10 years of my age, 10 older, 10 younger. But I would say now I'm at about 15 to 20% of my clients are their parents or their kids. So it works out well.
Nice. Love the whole networking. The thing that I love the most is the analytics behind, is this ROI positive? I mean, we're big on ROI. It's pretty much what we focus on when we're working with clients, is to make sure you're making more than you're spending.
Yes.
How did you go about that's the strategy I need to take and saying, all right, I'm gonna give it 6 months between the time and money to be part of it. Is it coming back? And how did that kind of lead choosing what networking groups to be part of as you move forward?
Well, what I found to be very productive was joining chambers of commerce first. They have a lot of affordable basic rates. Some of them a year, some of them were 1 year long. So I'd have to give them the full year.
Yeah.
But when you're in any of those groups, then you get people from your BNIs, your lay tips, your own private networking groups that come to you and say, hey, listen, I got a group, would like to have you come.
Yeah.
So I would check some of those out as well. And first, mainly focusing on their chambers of commerce helped out in that I was getting my name out there through reputable organizations. You're talking business chamber of commerces for a town or a city. You hope they're reputable. So, and they, for the most part, they tend to be. They do have shortcomings like every other, depending upon who's in charge. But by focusing on that in the first year, and pretty much actually for the first 5 years, as I continually built up my client list, getting repeat business from my business clients. I get repeat business from my estate planning clients, although that's like a once every 5 to 7 year thing. You just learn, I pay attention. Like, so at the end of the year, as I sit down and say, okay, I spent $3,000 to be members of these 7 groups this year. Did I get any money from this group? No. All right, I'm out. Did I get any money from these 2 groups? I did. I made at least my money back, maybe a little extra. So I'm going to stay with that and give it a little more time. Maybe I need to focus. And that's something else I would look at is like, did I make money at this group? Did I put the effort in? If I said I just joined and showed up every once in a while, it's like, well, maybe that's the reason why you didn't make any money. But, when I first started, I was a member of the Scottsdale Chamber of Commerce. They used to do 2 breakfast meetings a month, a lunch meeting a month, and a dinner meeting a month. And I was at all of them. Wow. And they were responsible in my first year for probably about 90% of my business.
Really?
Could be even as high as 95%. And I just started small. I was looking at that one. I joined the Asian American business community. Joined the Phoenix Chamber of Commerce, joined the Mesa Chamber of Commerce, and just started working that. And then as a result, like I said, like at the end of each year, when I'm figuring out my taxes and doing stuff, it's like, okay, this is how much I spent. What did I get out of it? And did I at least give it a fair chance? And if I could honestly say to myself, I gave it a fair chance and it wasn't worth it, then I dumped it.
Well, at least you're honest with yourself. And I mean, how did you track the ROI? I guess, what is your process? You leave a networking event. Do you take the people that you've connected with and put them into a CRM and kind of track that way? Or over the course of a year, that's
because I'm old school, I started off with my little Rolodex and, I used that, and I would keep track of where I met somebody. And I always keep track of, let's say you called me up out of the blue. I didn't know you. You call me. Well, how did you hear about me? What is it that you did that, made you want to talk to me to either do an estate plan or set up some business, draft contracts or something like that? And if you told me that someone referred you to me, and I get a lot of that is I get the call, they start off with, hi, so-and-so referred me to you. Well, I know where so-and-so came from. So so as a result of that, I could track it that way. And as a result, by just, when I fill out a client intake form, I write on there, okay, referred by this person from this group. And if that person's not from that group, like say, I know you're your own businessman here, but let's say you referred your father to me. I'd say, okay, referred by son. And that way I know how it came through, and just keep track of those things that way. I'm sure there are probably better ways to do this, but
better or worse,
whatever
I think,
works.
that's opinion. As long as it gets the job done, that's what is better or worse.
Exactly. Whatever works for me in my particular style and format.
Well, I've seen more times than not that it's like, oh yeah, let's get more technologically savvy and all that, and then all of a sudden you're not using it, and it's like, well, is it really better because now it's not being used? It all comes down to what's actually being used and what works for you. To show you how old school I am, I went out and bought one of those scanners that scans business cards, and I created a database in my computer. That's amazing.
So that's all. That's my high tech. I know a lot of people like with these cell phones, and you guys, I see like a dozen computers around here that you guys are probably very well adept at what you're doing and everything else, and probably have different programs to make your jobs a lot easier. Well, I guess that's all I need. So, I still have to do, I do a lot of stuff old school. Like I said, I occasionally will take 1 or 2 litigation matters a year. And it's usually only if it's clients I've already represented. I won't take somebody I've never represented or looked at before or known before. And it's only in any probate matters, trust matters, or in contract dispute matters.
Okay.
Whereas back in the old day, I used to, anything you needed. Yeah, well, I didn't have a choice. I worked for a law firm, so So like I don't do HOAs anymore because those were the most biggest pains.
Anything that has the word HOA or letters HOA, it's never fun. Dealing with them right now for our stuff, but yeah.
So as a result of that, I get my information and just like keep track of it.
Yeah.
And I have a brother who is a computer network security advisor.
Okay.
He put me on to a company called Newegg. So whenever I need, I don't know if I should say that but whatever.
Oh no, you're good. I love that.
So like if I need a computer or something like that, and I'll admit it, 15 years in business, I've replaced my desktop 3 times and my laptop 5 times. So, so I go to them, get it real inexpensive, and I just keep transferring that information over.
Absolutely. The thing that I loved is, just how you kind of came up and talked to us at the networking event. I still struggle with that, just walking up and talking. And I always like, am I coming off as salesy? Like a lot goes through my head before actually walking up. You did it so naturally, but I think a lot of small business owners, entrepreneurs, people that go to networking events kind of suffer what I suffered with. How does it come so natural? Do you have any tips on how to kind of break the ice or start conversations without making it feel like I'm just trying to pitch you? You know what I mean?
Well, that was it. That statement right there is treat it like you're just breaking the ice. You've got 4 people here. If I wanted to just get up to, say hello to someone, just go say hello, break that ice. What is it about, and that was the nice thing about the fact that you had a booth or countertop or you had a display of what you do. When you're going to those business events, people are looking to do business. That's what they're there for. So if you just go with the mentality of, just at least make connections. Hello, how you doing? Hot weather we're having. How about those suns? Whatever. Just make it easy conversation. Then the simple questions. Why are you here? What is it that you do? I will freely admit I go to those events and I will probably meet 25 to 30 people, but I'll only keep cards for 5 to 7 people. Some of those that are doing multi-level marketing, sorry, I'm not, I'm not into that. I'm not going to disparage you or anything like that, but I'm not going to get involved. My power partners are those individuals. If I'm looking, maybe the business himself needs legal help and they could use me, then that's one connection. That's a direct connection. But my power partners are your financial planners. They're your accountants. They're, they're individuals, business coaches. Business coaches are great because they get to tend to know each other or know everybody as well. Oh yeah, you need an attorney. Hey, go. I tend to focus on them. And then what I do is I'll take those 5 or 7 business cards and I will, shoot them an email. It was a pleasure meeting you at the event this evening. I was wondering if you'd like to get together either this week or next week, if you had time to get for coffee, just to get a little more in depth. I'm fortunate in the position that I don't have to sell. It's one of those things where, you're either going to use me or you're not. People, 70% of the population don't have any estate planning. This pandemic has changed people's thought processes on that. So as a result, I've picked up, maybe a dozen clients in the last couple of weeks that now want to do estate plans. I've picked up a couple clients on business matters that, they were trying to figure out how they can stay in business, renegotiate contracts, maybe renegotiate loans and stuff like that, or loan workouts, and get those done so that they can continue to, stay in business and operate. So that has helped out as well. And like I said, again, it's one of those things where because it's, if I was a new person, I'd be out there more often than I am, because I have a well-established client list and they continually, hey, Mark, this is going on. What do I need to do? Or, I get calls at least 3-4 times a week from somebody that I've represented in the last 15 years saying something new's come up. Or the ones I actually like is, well, you should know because you just had a baby too, is when, hey, we just had a baby girl or a baby boy and we need to update our estate planning. You say, all right, send me pictures. I want to see. So, it's nice, you see what they're doing, and you always work towards your kids.
Yeah.
So
Yep. Exactly.
and that's kind of my tagline. I show you how to protect your assets, and it's for you and your next generation.
I love that. That's a very clever way to market the tagline.
So
I love that you leverage power partners quite a bit. I think it's very under leveraged in just the business community in general. And I think so only because it all sounds good when you're talking like, oh yeah, well, past business, we have the same type of clientele, but once you get in the day to day, it never happens. How do you ensure that those referrals are happening? Is it just a matter of reaching out to your network once a month, or how do you keep those referrals happening? Because it's easy to forget about you when you're stuck in the day, in the day to day.
well, and that's part of it. It's got to be a constant thing. You have to be top of mind awareness. So when you're a part of these groups, what I try to do is I get to know the people that are in these groups, like some of the exclusive networking groups that I've been part of. I get to know them, and I can sell their businesses for them just as easily as they could probably sell mine for me. I always, if I don't give out legal advice, just send it this way. But it's one of those things where, if someone came to me and said, I need you to do a holographic will, or I need you to do a videographic will, who would you call? Well, I've met you now. Yeah. I see all the stuff you can do. I know just the person. Now, I would call up and make arrangements to do that. I would be there with them because I want to make sure everything gets put into the video as possible. With respect to individuals who are buying homes, like I go to a client's house and I sit down and talk to them either about their estate plan or their business or whatever. And I always tell them, I says, listen, if I've been networking in this town for 15 years now. I've got 5 names for everything you could possibly need. Why don't you, if you're looking for somebody that you're unhappy with or change, or if you're looking for somebody because you're new to the area, just let me know and I'll give you some names that you can call and talk to. By doing that and they making those calls and hey, like I get calls and I get, I think I've got like maybe 15 Starbucks cards on my refrigerator that I'll grab every once in a while to go out because like I've referred someone to an insurance agent or I referred someone to, and they say, oh, thanks for the referral. Here's the $10, get your next coffee on us. So by always referring them out when I can, I always get the referrals back. It's one of those give or take type things.
I think you just hit the nail on the head. I think everyone has those conversations with, all right, they're going to send me stuff and not, all right, I'm going to have to send them. So I think you have to reciprocate. I mean, if people are going to remember you, it's because you've helped them out as well. And it's not just a take. It's a give and take.
Well, there is that. It's the give and take. But what I also have to, or at least in my position, and I think with financial planners, with accountants, anybody dealing with people's money, you have to get it right. Yeah. And I mean, one of the things that I always promise anybody I'm with as a financial planner or a networker or anything like that, I guarantee you will never lose a client because of me. If I make a mistake, I'm human. I make mistakes. We all do. If I make a mistake, I will correct it at no charge to get it right. And I will go out of my way to make sure that the clients are happy and everything else, particularly with you for referring me to them. And knock on wood, 16 years, I can honestly say I don't think I've had one person ever come back and, hey, this client complained about you because you were whatever. Yeah,
that's an interesting point of view that I never thought of is the risk of if I'm referring, that's my name on the line. And it's like, it all sounds good in the conversation when we're networking, but then once that happens what if this happens or they don't perform and all that and it looks bad and now I lose a client or
I'll even do you one better. You should always give out at least 2 names. I always recommend 3 if you're going to refer somebody. Not everybody's a connection. Not everybody is easygoing, relaxed, can talk with everybody, just easy. I've had some clients, and I'll ask them that. Like if someone new comes to me and says, I need a financial planner, what do you have? Well, do you have any preferences? Would you rather work with a man or a woman? Would you rather work with, are there any companies you don't want to work with? I had one person tell me outright, I don't want to do anything with Wells Fargo, and I don't want to do anything with Waddell Reed.
Well,
so I said, all right. I said, so now I had individuals that I would recommend, but I know those two are out of the thing.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, how about Edward Jones, or how about, T. Rowe Price, or some of these others? And, no, those are fine. And who do you recommend? And I tell them is, well, I have my guy who I'm going to recommend as well, that me and my wife do financing through. But I will tell you right now, as my client, don't call the first guy and stop there. Call all three.
Yeah.
Tell them exactly what you're looking to do, because someone may have different programs for you that you may like more.
Yeah.
And then by instructing the client to do that, it accomplishes two things. One, it relieves me of any liability.
Very smart.
Negligent entrustment laws. If I only gave you one name and it turned to be a disaster, you could potentially sue me for negligent entrustment.
Holy cow.
And as a result, because you relied on me as an expert for this individual, but by giving you three names, you can't. No, I told him to call and look at all three. If you stopped after one, that's your business. But I gave you three names. Yeah. So that's one of the reasons. And two, it is one of those things where it's my reputation, as you just said. It's my reputation as well. If you're not happy with somebody, you're going to say, how did we connect? Marc gave me that guy. Marc's a jerk. So it's like, but if you call all three, even if you liked all three, if one of them had a better deal for you than the other two, and that's who you finally decided to go with, then you're going to be even happier. Yeah. So
exactly. No, I mean, it just comes down to genuinely caring, and it sounds like that's what you do, and that's amazing. I mean, it's between what you just dropped there, the referring, can't believe you can be held liable for that. But two, I mean, it's you mentioned something with handing out business cards at Gelly's event where I don't have LLC or S Corp or anything on my card, and you could actually be held liable for that as well, right?
Well, you can be held personally liable.
Personally.
If you are an LLC, but you hold yourself out as a sole proprietor, they can pierce the corporate veil easier that way, because there's the question of whether or not you're trying to defraud somebody. So when you have a business card, if I have some on me.
I don't have any on me.
So on my business card, I have it on the back, the law offices of PLLC. Yeah. I'm required to have the P because I'm required to have a professional license to be a lawyer. So that's how I set up my business as an LLC. If I didn't put PLLC on there and just said the law offices of Marc Pacquette, and I screwed up and somebody wanted to sue me, they could easily pierce the corporate veil, because they can say, well, isn't that fraud by holding yourself out as a sole proprietor? And then now I have to deal with that in litigation, stuff like that. So if you're cautious, you look things over and you do things properly, you're affording yourself the protections that they afford the companies in the state by creating that corporate veil and by making sure you're protected. Because even then, everybody knows mistakes happen. Yeah. It's what you're willing to do to fix it. And that's where a lot of our litigation comes in and everything else, is that people mess up because they're not willing to fix it.
You know, I don't understand that. I mean, I could see where you might, there's it's not really my fault. It is your fault. I mean, having that, but I think there are far too many companies that they'll recognize they made a mistake, and it's like, well, sorry.
Well, some of them will fix it, and a lot of them do, but there are some of them, for whatever reason, don't. One, they can no longer afford to. Two, the client was a jerk. You know, it's unfortunate that there are some people out there that they just hate life, and they're terrible with everybody. I had a case. I represented a construction engineer, and this couple filed a lawsuit on him, claiming they wanted the $10,000 back that they paid him. And in going through the matter, they were the most obnoxious, miserable people I've ever met, you know, and it was just like, there was nothing that he could have done to satisfy these people. He went out to the site to readjust, realign, and take care of everything with that site more times than he should have had to. And there was just nothing that was going to make him happy. And what they did was, it was kind of a unique case in that in Arizona, if you have a house that you want to knock down the house and rebuild, you have to now rebuild according to the zoning laws. However, if you knock down all of the house except for one wall, you can keep that wall and use the same print and not have to do the setbacks or worry and things like that. So as a result, that's what this type of case was. And, you know, it finally got to the point where these people, we ended up in front of the Register of Contractors to discuss the $10,000. And it was one of those things where these people were just miserable about everything. So, what kills me is that the case turned out to be dismissed because they never had a contract. The couple never signed the contract and sent it back, gave them the $10,000. And well, they're arguing they don't have a contract. If they don't have a contract, you don't have jurisdiction here.
Yeah.
He's right. So we're not arguing. We don't have a contract. Well, then, all right, case dismissed.
Set yourself up.
So,
that's interesting. But I mean, that little, I mean, there's so many little things that, I mean, you just don't think of. I mean, that, like I said, putting LLC or S Corp or whatever on ours, I never even thought that you could be held liable. I didn't even know that.
Well, if you don't mess up, it's not really an issue.
Yeah.
You know, and that's one of the things, like I said, you know, there's a saying that everybody gets sued 5 times. Every business gets sued 5 times.
Jeez.
Well, the reality is Ford Motor Company gets sued 15,000 times, and these 100 companies don't get sued at all because that's just the law of averages, and that's how they figure it out. So as a result, you know, if you don't have it on there and you don't get sued, it's never something to worry about. But if you want to protect yourself, then you do things properly. You make sure you hold yourself out as a corporation, whether it's an LLC, as a C Corp or an S Corp or whatever. Mm-hmm. You make sure that's on all your advertisement and brochures and stuff like that. Here's one of the things the biggest thing that I've been finding lately, and because it seems to be very easy to do, is a lot of people now, instead of having an attorney draft or review a contract for them, they'll just go pull something off the computer.
Oh, I've seen that. Yeah.
There you go. No, this looks good to me. I think it's everything. And here you go. And then you find out a year later when you're in a lawsuit that, oh, wait, this doesn't cover those provisions that you wanted.
Yeah.
So I always tell clients, I said, listen, I understand lawyers are not cheap. You know, I myself, I'm not expensive, but I'm not cheap either.
Yeah.
So what I always recommend doing is get yourself a contract. If you want to pull something off the internet or something like that, go ahead, pull it off, fill it out. Then let's sit down. Spend at least 3 hours worth of time with me to see if this contract is going to protect you or not.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe you're not spending $3,000 to have me create a brand new contract from you, but you're spending $700, $800, $900 to make sure the contracts that you do have or use are at least going to protect you.
Yeah.
And that way it saves you money that way.
And that $800, I mean, that's cheap compared to if you get caught in a lawsuit, the financial part, but just the time it takes to go through all that. It's
2 years and $80,000 to get to the day of trial now.
Holy cow! Are you serious?
That's on average. There was a judge came out who I guess keeps track of all these things, and I want to say he came out with that in 2018, 2019. He was saying that the average trial now, just to get to the day of trial, is $80,000 to $85,000. Wow. And it's now at least 2 years from the date you file, because of the fact that lawyers are now afraid of malpractice. So instead of a day you file a complaint, breach of contract, and it's like a 3-page complaint and you submit it, you got, it's breach of contract, it's breach of good faith and fair dealing, it's breach of, Prompt Payment Act, it's breach of whatever other late crazy laws that the legislator put in there. So now you have contracts that are 15, 20 pages long, and the attorneys are like, well, we have to deal with it now because we don't want to get sued for malpractice. So we go through everything, and we now have discovery, which used to be, here's my 20 questions. And you get the 20 questions back. Oh, I need to do an addendum. I got to write to the court and ask for permission to do an addendum to do more than 20. And it goes amazing that's why I would say 98% of your cases are settling out now, because clients get to the point where I just can't pay anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what they do.
Sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then knowing that, most of the audience are small business owners, entrepreneurs, you work on the business side. What's, I guess, one thing that you see amongst all businesses, industries, not a specific sector or anything, that is commonly overlooked, like that the putting LLC or S corp on your card, what is one thing that often gets overlooked that people don't even realize how much liability they're putting themselves out on?
I think the biggest thing is that they don't read the contracts. They just sign them. And honestly, as long as everybody's making money, nobody cares what's in the contracts.
Yeah.
That's the sad truth is, hey, listen, we were just making money. Let's just go. Whatever's in there, go. We each get our money. That's it. So when someone stops making money or someone feels that they were wronged, then when people start looking at contracts, well, I didn't realize that was in there. And that's the biggest problem I see. I get people who you set up a corporation and, you lease a building like this. In some places will require you to put a personal guarantee on it. Well, wait a second. Why did I set up a corporation to shield my personal life if I'm now required to give a personal guarantee? So things like that, you go through and you say, well, why did you do that? Weren't they willing to negotiate? And that's the other big thing is some places are willing to negotiate, but nobody tries. Ask.
Yeah.
If you never ask the question, the answer is always no.
Yep.
So ask the question. You may get the no anyways, or they may go back to their, you know what, we may be able to do that. Let me just talk to my attorney and see what so they'll do that. They'll talk to their attorney. Sometimes they don't. They'll look it over and say, okay, I don't think it really hurts us, so let's get rid of it. But for example, I had a client who he rented or he bought a home up north that he wanted to use as a B&B. I'm going to say 11 months out of the year. Mm-hmm. He goes up there. He and his wife go up there and they spend 1 week a quarter, or actually maybe 2 weeks during the summer. But, so maybe 5 total weeks during the year. And it's on these grounds where there's the owner of some of the other cabins that they rent out and stuff like that. So he asked me to review the contract and I looked it over and I says, well, it's a basic contract, but here are the issues I have with the contract. And there were about 6 things that I had a problem with in the contract because it allowed for the owners of the land that were running all the other cabins to just blatantly charge whatever they wanted without really any justifications. Yeah. So I said, if you can remove these 6 contracts and have this one worded so that anything above this dollar amount, they have to clear with you. So we went through and did that. He spent 2 hours going through his contract. Yeah. It was about 7 pages. I gave him, he did the negotiations himself, but I was willing to do that if he wanted. Yeah. He wanted to save the money. So gave him that and he went up there and they said, yeah, all right. They pulled out all 7 things and made the adjustment on the last one and everybody was happy, Yeah. So as a result, they knew what was going on. And I think that's the biggest problem is, a lot of places feel rushed. A lot of times it's like, I got to get this now, or if I don't get it right now. Well, the reality is no. If someone's telling you, I have another client that wants to look at this place and you don't feel right, or you want to take time to take the time. All right, let them have it then. You know what? Yeah. Because I guarantee you for every place that says this place, there's at least 10 other places around that you can probably find. Yeah. That'll suit your needs. So don't feel rushed into anything. Have someone review the contract. Or even better yet, because there are some terms in contracts that are so blatantly obvious that you don't need it. Just, say, hey, Mark, I'm having an issue with understanding term number 6 and term number 12. Would you read these and explain them to me? Yeah. Yeah. We just took 45 minutes to do that, and you just, got the answer of what it means and what you should do, and see if they'll negotiate. And I will tell you right out, if they're not willing to negotiate that, you got to be really careful in going into this lease or doing something. But if if they're willing to negotiate or something like that, or give clarifications, then that's one of the things. Like one of the other things that I find with a lot of these major business condo units that have just been built, well, you pay a pro rata share of maintenance and everything else. Is that pro rata share based on the number of units or based on the number of occupied units? Oh. Because if 30 of those units are unoccupied and it's a $10,000 bill, then the last 6 people are, $5,000 each. So you need to make sure that it's on the number of units and not number of occupied. stuff like that. So those type of things you want to check into,
Yeah.
make sure it's going on. Plus, there's a lot of, particularly because of the pandemic, a lot of people now working from home. If I was to give them any advice, I would say go to a mail stop, go to a Postal Max, go to a Postal and More, go to a mailboxes, et cetera, something like that. Put the name of your business in there. Keep it in there. Keep it separate from your private life. Don't have things come to your house.
Interesting.
2 reasons. 1, if you piss somebody off, you don't want them knowing where you live.
Touche.
2, those get solicited. That was a gentleman, his name is, and this is one of those senior moments, Mike Castillo. He runs Postal Max in Scottsdale.
Mm-hmm.
I met him when I first started networking, and he came up and he says, listen, if you're a business person or you want to make sure that your home life is private, you should come get a postal box from us. So it was very interesting what he said, and I went down and I talked to him and everything else, and everything he said made sense. I opened up my postal box with him, opened up my firm and everything else. And in the first month, I must have had 300 pieces of solicitation.
Jeez.
Easily. Hey, see, you're a new business. You might need this. You might need that. Yeah. And he says, what do you want? I went in like the first, like 3 days after I opened up, and he said, he pulled out a stack like about this thick, and there was probably about 60 of them there. And he says, what do you want to do with these? And I says, well, let me see. And I looked through them and I said, it's all junk mail, Mike. I said, junk mail you can get rid of. Anything that's you're not sure of, put it in the box. So and that's the way it was. It was great.
Nice.
And now if you open up in your home, some people enjoy getting that type of mail, but it's like, no, I don't want it. I don't have to run through my shredder to get rid of it all. So that would be one thing I would tell people. I would also tell people to sit down with a business lawyer and an accountant to determine what's the best way to open. The LLC was created, I believe it was 1995, and has been running since. It's to help out those small mom and pop shops. When you open up a S Corp or a C Corp of an incorporation, you're required to have at least 2 people. One who can be president and treasurer, and one can be vice president and secretary, or, so some combination of. You want to open up your own business as an individual, well, that wasn't available. So now you can do the LLCs. What's nice is the IRS, when you open up your LLC, you get 75 days. You can file with the IRS how you want to take your taxes. Mm-hmm. As an LLC, you can take it one of 4 ways. As a sole proprietor, which means you're taxed on the first penny you make right through. You can take it on the partnership if, say, 2 or 3 of you were doing something together. You can take it as an S Corp, or you can take it as a C Corp, as an LLC. And then you just, depending on your taxes, you file at the end of the year.
Yeah.
So you get certain advantages by doing it as an S Corp or a C Corp. So like I do mine, I'm a LLC, filed under the S election, and me and my accountant sit down and say, okay, this is how much you have to pay yourself. This is how much your business owns.
Yep.
And this is how we can do it to keep taxes reduced. So I would always talk to someone, what's the best way to set up? And depending upon what you're doing, like those who are dealing in real estate or insurances, I would always recommend to have a C Corp there, because there are certain write-offs you can take in doing those. Now, that's not to say you can't set up like a holding company as an LLC and then set up a C Corp over here for realty, another LLC over here for, like, say you want to do publishing, something else if you want to do some businesses. Now, the advantage of doing something like that, where you've got one above and then everything else below, is you can start doing pass-through losses and profits. So your corporation loses 10 grand this year, but this one made 20 grand profit. Well, you can pass 10 grand over to here and reduce your tax liability over here.
That's
those type of things.
That's the fun stuff.
So that's why you should always talk to a business lawyer and you're an accountant, or if you have a business lawyer who does both business and taxes, to do that.
Nope, that makes sense. Just going back to the signing contracts, because the sense of urgency, I feel like I'm going to miss out. It's funny you mentioned that, because it's like we actually dealt with that recently, where it was a larger client, biggest client that we've had, and there was a thing in there that basically said that they can dissolve the contract based off of just for no reason, like no wrongdoing on our part or anything like that. And we're just like, do we waive that? I mean, obviously we're going to do good work, but we'd like to just waive, like not have that the only way that you can dissolve it is if we breach contract. And we just went back and forth on, do we ask them to get rid of it? Or are they going to walk away if we ask? But we asked, and they're like, yeah, we just put it in every contract. We'll get rid of it. And it was done. And it's funny how much anxiety. It was like, well, we got to sign this because they're going to walk away. But it's that, I don't know what it is that creates that.
I can understand the angst and trying to get the business and everything else. But I would always suggest that if they have a term in there that you're not sure of, ask them if they're going to make that term reciprocal. If they're not willing to, then I would question whether or not you're going to answer it. Too many people get into contracts as well with people that after 6 months, they realize that this is the worst contract we ever signed. So do you want to be stuck with them when they can walk away at no chance? So, and those are things that you always try to deal with. And that's where you talk to an attorney and they'll, through experience, you can say, well, these are questions I would ask. Did you have someone in this position before? Why did it end? What happened there? Is it, are you willing to let me talk to them as a referral? And if they say, no, you can't call them, maybe they're the reason why you're not. So it gives you ideas just to, increase your knowledge. We use a term in the legal field called knowingly and intelligently. And I always thought that it should just be knowingly. Yeah. You're going to make decisions no matter what, but as long as the more you know, the better it is for you, because you can knowingly make a decision. Intelligence is always a question of how. We'll talk to that standpoint. So,
no, that makes sense. This has been great. I mean, you help businesses plan. You help people plan their estates and everything. You personally, I know before this, you mentioned you're not wanting to grow. What are some short-term goals that you have in the next 6 months, not only from a personal perspective but for the business?
Well, I would like to maintain. It's one of those things where I'm doing fairly well. I've got a in-house counsel position that I haven't received an offer on. It's not a full-time position. So it'd be one of those things that can get me out and get me interacting with people on a regular basis. As a sole practitioner, it does get lonely. So that's why I enjoy doing the networking and enjoy getting out and meeting like individuals for coffee and stuff like that. So for my own business, it's more of, I want to make sure people know what they can do to protect themselves. I offer to all my financial planners, all my accountants, I'll give free seminars for basic estate planning to individuals.
Love it.
If you wanted to pull together a group of 5-10 people yourself, I'm more than willing to talk for free for an hour. If somebody wanted to sign up with me, great. If they wanted to sign up with somebody else, great. Just sign up. Like I said, 70% of the people don't have an estate plan. And in doing so, they don't realize that, well, yeah, you do. It's the government's estate plan. And I don't know if you want theirs controlling your stuff. So for my own self, like I said, I would like to just maintain. I'm not young, you guys are. It's one of those things where I see myself retiring probably in the next 5 to 7 years, at least from full-time practice. I may always do something a little bit, but I find that I've worked with 7 different charities, and as a result, I get more enjoyment out of being a positive impact on people's lives. So. But I will tell you this, because you were gracious enough to offer this to me. Anybody who listens to your podcast and wants to talk, I'll give them that free 1-hour consultation, but I'll also knock 10% off any estate plan they want to do or any business matter that they want to talk about. It's the same deal I offer to veterans and first responders, but I'll offer to anybody who mentions this podcast, I'll give them a 10% discount as well.
That's awesome.
So, the way it equates is, for those who want to know, if they're a married couple and I'm doing a trust, it's $2,300. I'll knock $230 off. Individuals, it's $1,900, so it's $190. A will package for an individual is $600. For a married couple, it's $1,000. So 10% of that. And then business, depending upon what it is, I will give you a flat fee to do what you need to have done, and then knock 10% off. Or if it's something that we have to do, it's an ongoing project where it's going to be like a payment type program. I will figure it out and then do 10% each pay for that if they mention this podcast.
That's awesome. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm going to be coming to you for contract stuff. Half the time I have to look up what words mean, and that's probably not a good way to sign contracts.
Good way to increase your knowledge.
Knowledge, but it's not the most ROI positive use of my time.
Yep.
So I'll be definitely going to you on the business side. But I mean, people who want to take advantage of that, how can they reach out to you?
Well, my phone number is 480-993-6650. My email is Marc, M-A-R-C, at the Paquette Law Firm. That's ThePaquette lawfirm.com. Shoot me an email, shoot me a phone call or a text. Tell me, you heard about this podcast, and tell me, don't tell me what you need until we talk in person. I am the only one who answers my phones or emails, but let's keep that attorney-client privilege going, and we'll go from there.
Awesome. Mark, this has been great. Love what you've been doing, and looking forward to sending our contract stuff for the sake of my time. I'm excited for that. I can't thank you enough for coming down. Appreciate your knowledge.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me. This has been enjoyable.
Awesome. Thank you.